Okay, if I have your attention, I want you to tell me if this sounds familiar. You walk into a room and immediately adjust the temperature. Your spouse walks into the same room 5 minutes later, changes it back. You change it again, and then they change it again, and neither of you acknowledges this silent battle. You both pretend the other person doesn't exist, and this continues for 17 years. Or how about this one? You wake up on the morning of your summer vacation, pack your bag 10 minutes before leaving. Your spouse started packing 4 weeks ago when she made a spreadsheet. You throw random clothes in a bag. They have outfits coordinated by day with backup options. You forgot to pack any underwear at all. But it's okay because they packed a first aid kit, a portable steamer, and yes, a kettle. What about when you make plans to hang out with that one friend and you arrive 15 minutes early, which you know is exactly on time, and your friend texts, running late, be there in 10, and you know this means 45 minutes. Your friend arrives, you suggest Italian, and they insist on reading every single Yelp review. You're willing to risk gas station chili dogs and a minor case of food poisoning just for the sake of forward momentum, but oh no, that's not how this day is going to go. And you know how the day goes. Frustration starts to build. You start to wonder, like, what is even wrong with this person? Like, what possibly could have happened in their childhood to lead to what you're experiencing with this hangout? Why do they have to turn a simple decision into a TED Talk? Why do they need a committee to choose a Netflix show? And you know that none of it is all that important, but you also know that all of it feels so frustrating. Here's the truth. Maybe you know this, maybe you don't. You know that they're probably thinking the exact same thing about you, right? Frustrated, that's right. And sadly, friends, this kind of friction is exactly the stuff that wears away at and sometimes even breaks good relationships. And like I said, it's not important. None of it's important stuff. It's not, I don't know what's important to you. It's not your beliefs. It's not your values. It's not theology or doctrine. But over the simple fact that, different people approach problems differently and process information differently and communicate differently. Yeah, that's how we're wired. And if you've ever felt the pain of misunderstanding, if you have ever felt drained after interacting with certain people, if you've ever avoided conversations entirely because you feel like you know exactly where they're going to lead, then you know people are strange, aren't they? Yeah, people are strange. If you've ever told yourself, listen to this, that your way is the right way and everybody else just needs to adjust, well, it's time to close the barn door because there are storms coming if that's you. The question I want you to think about today is, what if strange is the point? That's it. What if strange is the point? What if God designed diversity not as a problem to solve, but as a strength to harness? What if God designed you to need people who are nothing like you? Why would he do that? Does he hate me? No. Listen, if you're new here today, it's great having you. My name is Darryl Buckle. I'm one of the pastors. Did my mic just disappear? Oh, there it is. One of the pastors here at Pathway Community Church. For the last few weeks, Murray, we have been working our way through a series called It's Not That Complicated, Murray. It's Not That Complicated is what it's called, and it's a series of messages designed to help you with the relationships in your life that sometimes feel complicated or feel confusing or sometimes feel frustrating. That's what we're talking about today. So what I want you to think about this morning is what if? What if the people who frustrate you the most are the ones you need the most? If you have a Bible with you, go ahead and flip to 1 Corinthians chapter 12. If you have your smartphone, as always, our notes are in the YouVersion Bible app under the Events tab. You can follow along with our scriptures our questions, and this week some fun pictures to help walk you through our notes today. We're going to start 1 Corinthians chapter 12, starting in verse 12. Let me read it to you. Just as a body, though one, has many parts, but all its many parts form one body, so it is with Christ. So let's just stop there. Like, I know we didn't get far, but let's just stop there. One body, many members. Does that make sense? Yeah, like this isn't a concession that Paul is making. He doesn't say, well, listen, people, unfortunately, you're kind of stuck with different kinds of people. He says, you know what? Actually, this is how God designed things to work. It's not a bug, it's a feature. Make sense? Yeah, let's continue. Verse 14. And so the body is not made up of one part, but of many. Now, if the foot should say, because I am not a hand, I do not belong to the body, it would not for that reason stop being part of the body. And if an ear, for instance, should say, because I'm not an eye, I do not belong to the body, it would not, for that reason, stop being part of the body. And it all sounds kind of, well, purposefully absurd, a little bit funny if it's new to you. Your foot complaining about, not being a hand, or complaining about the hands not being like them, the foot. It's ridiculous when we expect everyone to behave like us. It's ridiculous, right? Verse 17 says, if the whole body were an eye, where would the sense of hearing be? If the whole body were an ear, where would the sense of smell be? And so you get what Paul is saying here. You might think you do, but you don't. You don't want everyone to be just like you. You might think that you do, but you don't. You don't want everyone to be just like you. A body made entirely of eyes would be useless. Super funny looking. A community where everybody processes information the same way, or communicates the same way, or solves problems the same way would be clumsy, right? If you think about that, would be clumsy. Ultimately very weak. That's not how bodies were designed to perform. But in fact, verse 18 says, God has placed the parts of the body, parts in the body, every one of them, just as he wanted them to be. God, why would you do that? If they were all one part, where would the body be? As it is, there are many parts, but one body. And so, that person that drives you absolutely crazy with their need to process, their need for process. Yeah, God put them there. Yeah, the person who seems reckless with their spontaneity. Yeah, God arranged that part too. He chose, actually, this design, the complicating diversity that you experience in your relationships and your church or your workplace is intentional. And listen, I'm not saying that God sent every bonehead into your life to mess with your Zen. That's not what I'm saying. Some people behave badly, right? You know people like that? Some people behave badly. Some people load the cutlery in the dishwasher dirt side down. Like it doesn't make them bad people. Maybe they just want some peanut butter for later, and so I don't know. But it doesn't make them bad people. It doesn't mean that you can't be friends with somebody who does that. I don't know why you would. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you. That's a good reminder. The eye cannot say to the hand, I have no need of you, nor again the head to the feet. Some of you are going to email me about that. Listen, go ahead. Nor can the head say to the feet, I have no need of you. On the contrary, you guys are with me again. The parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. Should I read that part again? The parts that seem to be weaker are indispensable. So who are those people to you? Yeah, their faces in your mind right now. Those are like, I don't know exactly who I'm talking about. Yes, those people are indispensable. The people you dismiss as fill in the blank, like too slow, or too cautious, or too detailed, or too emotional, or too analytical, like whatever those people are, they might be precisely the ones that you need the most. Why? So that your strengths don't become weaknesses without their contribution. That's how it works. That's how a body works. So your strengths could become weaknesses without their contribution. So what I'm saying to you today is I don't want you to sort of need tolerance for diversity. That's not the message. I want you to think how I need desperation for diversity. I want you to escalate this thing. Don't just tolerate diversity. I want you to be desperate for diversity. I want you to wake up and realize that your perspective is incomplete. Your approach is limited. Your natural tendencies have blind spots. That person who frustrates you, they actually see exactly what you miss. The person who slows you down, protects you from making careless mistakes. The person who pushes you forward all the time keeps you from stagnation or from your life from getting stale or stuck. And every single day, if you're like me, you make conclusions about what you think is normal or right because it's obvious to you, right? It's obvious. And you forget that you're wearing glasses that color everything you see. And these same glasses blind you to things that other people see clearly, like crystal clearly. Have you guys all heard of, I think it's called inattention bias, but you might have heard it called attention blindness. Attention blindness. What is it? It's a video that you may have seen. I know I've showed it to some of you. It's the video of the kids passing a basketball. Have you seen that video? And the challenge is you're supposed to count how many times players with white shirts pass the basketball to each other. And if you're like Amanda sitting at the back table, you're all competitive about this. You're like, counting passes, like, that's too easy. Like, you can make it more challenging, Buckle. And so she focuses on counting the amount of it's 15. Like, I'm not trying to spoil the end, it's 15. But what you completely miss while you are so focused on counting passes is a guy in a gorilla suit walks across the screen, stops and pounds his chest, and then continues to walk. And when you introduce the fact that it's 15, and all the competitive people are like, I knew it. It was easy. And then they say, but did you see the gorilla? They'll be like, what gorilla? Because they're so focused. That's what inattention or what attention blindness can be. What's the point of it? Sometimes what you focus on determines not what you see, but what you miss. Sometimes what you focus on actually determines what you miss. You don't actually see things as clearly as you think you do. Yeah, them's fighting words for some of you. You're like, what do you know, Buckle? Yes, you don't. None of us do. None of us do. Sometimes the things that you minimize or ignore entirely actually impact your behavior a lot more than you realize. There's a study I've shared before. Researchers did a study where they exposed a group of participants to a word puzzle. Do you remember this one? And in this word puzzle were words associated with aging. If you're curious about those, true story, the words were things like retirement and Florida. I didn't make up this study, but I thought that was pretty funny. Both of those, the researchers felt, were associated with aging. That wasn't the study, whether they could figure out the word puzzle. The study was at the end of the experiment. They just said, thanks for coming. And then they filmed the participants walking down the hallway and up the stairs. And the participants in the cohort where the words were about aging walked slower down the hallway and up the stairs. Their behavior was primed by the experiment. You're like, Darryl, surely that's not true. It's true. You can prime people's behaviors just with ideas that they don't even recognize. They never would have associated these things. They didn't know they were being primed, but their behavior was affected. There's another study that found that people in a shopping mall, so you picture a crowded shopping mall, are more likely to help a passing stranger when the air is filled with pleasant scent like baking cookies and roasting coffee. And I'm like, yeah, isn't that wild? That's like, absolutely, that sounds right. All you got to do is bake some cookies and everybody's in a good mood. What's the point? You might not know yourself or see the world as clearly as you think you do. Yeah, that's what the research says. None of us know ourselves or see the world as clearly or as objectively as we think. We all have blinders, blind spots, and we're all very impressionable. So listen to it this way. If God designed diversity, right, as a feature and not a bug, if every community is like a body where different people have different strengths and different weaknesses, if each of us, our attention and our environments can influence our behavior, and that's true of all of us, well, man, you can see how easy it is in a group of any size for the relationships to start to get in conflict, right? You can see how, boy, it sounds complex. It sounds, Murray, pretty complicated, right? It sounds pretty complicated. Well, there are tools that can help. And so I thought for fun today, and this is fun. I know some of you walked in and you're like, whoa, what happened here? This is not fun anymore. But for fun, I thought I would share a bit of a tool that I use in coaching. It's called Grip Birkman. Have you heard of Grip Birkman? Have you heard of the Birkman method? Any of you taken that at work in a leadership conference? Some of you have. Grip Birkman is an assessment that helps you understand how your personality and your present environment might be influencing your behavior and your sense of well-being and stuff like that. And it has two parts. The first is a traditional kind of spiritual gift inventory, which many more of you might have taken at one point in your church life. A spiritual gift inventory helps you recognize how God has gifted you to serve in the body of Christ, what your gifts are and how your gifts are different than other people's gifts, and all that's good and by God's design. The second part of the Grip Birkman is a Birkman assessment, and that helps you discover sort of more your personality and some behavioral preferences, how you're wired to flourish in any environment. And it does that by assessing 4 key ingredients. They're in your notes. They're also going to be on the screen. The first is your usual behaviors. Your usual behaviors is how you just show up in the world. Are you direct or are you diplomatic? Direct, put up your hand. Diplomatic, put up your hand. See, some of you are like, of course we are, Darryl. We have emotional intelligence, unlike those people. Do you prefer structure or flexibility? Structure? Flexibility. Yeah, so you guys are getting it. Do you focus on tasks or on relationships? Do you need time alone to recharge, or do you gain energy from people? You get how this works. Those are your usual behaviors. Second, your underlying needs. What you need from others in your environment to function at your best. That's what it's about. So how does this work? You might be independent, but you actually have a need for affirmation and support. You like to work independently, but you also need affirmation and support. You might appear easygoing as long as there are clear expectations and structure. You're easygoing, but you need clear expectations and structure. And already you can imagine a scenario where your needs differ from your usual behaviors. You see that? And so there's a gap, and in that gap creates tension. Yeah, in that gap is a possibility for misunderstanding in a team setting. Third thing is your stress behaviors. This is how you show up when your needs aren't met. When you get home, you can ask your spouse if they recognize when you are under stress, and they'll say, oh, I know, when you're under stress. When you're under stress, your usual strengths become distorted. Let me give you some examples. The person who's normally thoughtful, right, they're thoughtful. They become paralyzed by overthinking. See how that? Because when there's stress in the environment, they're usually thoughtful, and it's good, but they become paralyzed by overthinking, or they can become paralyzed by overthinking. The person who's normally decisive starts being controlling. Like, on a good day, they're decisive, but now they're deciding for everybody, and this is how it's gonna, you guys get it. Those are your stress behaviors. Fourth are your interests. What energizes you? What motivates you? Does everybody know somebody who comes alive with numbers and data? Like, so weird, right? Yeah. No, there's people who are like, yes, numbers, give me a spreadsheet. No, don't. I'll make it. I'll make the spreadsheet. Yeah, some people, that's it. Other people thrive on creative expression. There's people who love to work with their hands. There's others who prefer to work with ideas, and they leave the working with hands to people more qualified than they are. And what's the point? Well, the point is this. I hope it's obvious. When you start to understand these things, these 4 areas, where you stop assuming that your way is the only way, and you're thinking, Darryl, don't patronize us. Of course our way's not the only way. I mean, it's the right way, but it's not the only way. You recognize that what feels obvious to you is actually foreign, like completely foreign to it would never occur to someone else, and it's obvious to you. What energizes you drains drains someone else. What you need from others might be different than what they need from you. And so all of this can be charted on a map. We're going to throw the map on the screen with some people. Yes, some of you are like, Darryl, is that you? Yep, that's me. With some people, your usual behavior diamond can live in one area, and your asterisks, which is sort of your interest, can live in a completely different area. And then your needs and your stress behavior, the circle square, which are always together, they can live in absolutely different, right? There's sometimes, though, people, what you see is what you get with some people, right? All three parts of a triangle are tightly held together like this person here. In the extreme, if you notice the little quadrants, they are extremely, and also close, all in the same color. I know this person to be thoughtful and reflective. They are deeply caring, even though they are introverted in a big way, pretty introverted. Of course, this is my wife. Yeah, this is Luana. And so, which character are you? You might have an idea about what character. Maybe you're energetic or decisive, or you get results through action, or you love working with your hands. So let me go through the different color quadrants in a character form. The reds are the doers. Let's imagine the reds down in this corner, just like they are. The reds are the doers. They are the get it done types, action-oriented. You tell them we're going to have a meeting to plan. They're like, no. When your meeting's done, you tell me what you want done, and I'll do it. Like that's what they're action-oriented. They don't need to be part of the deciding. They're not interested in that part. The reds can be competitive. Anyone competitive in here? The Reds can be competitive because they're task-oriented and results-driven. Those are the Reds. The Reds are great people to have on a team. Next comes the Greens, which are the communicators. If the Reds are the doers, the Greens are the communicators. They're enthusiastic. They love variety. Like when their boss is away, they're like, let's change everything. Let's mess with the chairs, and let's see how many things we can change without the wheels falling right off. They love to motivate and lead by communicating, and they love working with people. They're on the people side of the thing. These are the Greens in this front corner. If the Reds are the doers, the Blues down the back corner, they're the thinkers. Blues are often creative and innovative, but need time for reflection. Yeah, that's why the Blues actually prefer long-term planning. Like, don't think that you can just wake up in the morning and decide to do something crazy, like go to Tim Hortons with the kids. Like, that's a crazy adventure like that needs to be planned for a few days. So don't think you can. True story. Blues often like to discover new ways to solve problems. Blues are great people to have on the team. You need them on your team. Any Blues here? Yeah, absolutely. People side, but they're not extroverts. They're kind of more introverted. Blues. I just want to give you an anonymous shout out here because I asked you to raise your hand and some of you did. Like, I don't know why I asked you to be so demonstrable and stuff like that in a group setting. That was a faux pas on my part. I apologize, but thanks for playing along. Finally, yellows. Yellows are the analyzers. They're in that back quadrant if when you see the map again. They are on the task side of the map. Processes and procedures are their superpower. If there's a right way to pack a trunk, and they'll tell you there is, they will explain it to you if they like you. They are highly organized because that's what it takes to be efficient, and coincidentally, you have an 87% chance of being successful if you follow the rules. So let's just get a quick show of hands. Reds up in the room, if you think you're a red, a doer, a few of you. Greens up there. Blues, yellows, you guys are good at this. This is where it gets fun. So I want you to imagine yourself on a map. I'm going to need some volunteers. I'm going to turn the camera into the thing. This is where it gets fun. I want you to imagine yourself on a map, and let's go with you, Peter. If this is where Peter is, this is a yellow quadrant. I don't know if that's true for Peter. Hey, help me out, Steve. That's good. Just, you guys stay there. You're doing a great job. Okay, wait. Listen, for this relationship experiment to work, you guys have to play nice. Because if you don't play nice, your relationship will experience tension quickly.
Some pain?
There will be some problems there, so you guys just good. I'll try and remember to come get you before the end of the service. That's fantastic. Okay, that's good. If you imagine yourself on the map, there's an elastic band stretched between you and someone else that you know who is at their point on the map. Now, if you can imagine, like, these people are pretty close in the middle, right? The further apart you are, the more you stretch that elastic, right? And the more stretched, the more potential for tension you are for that. This is all making good sense now. Like, oh, that's what tension feels like. People close to you, like, it's easy. Like, there's no tension in the elastic. You know, that's so easy, right? Because you understand each other intuitively. You guys communicate at similar ways. The approach you take to problem solving it's the same, and so the elastic stays relaxed. But somebody far from you, that feels difficult, and you misunderstand each other constantly, and your communication styles often clash. Your approach to problems seems incompatible, and every interaction, am I right? And that elastic between you stretches. Every conversation feels like work with that person, right? You've set the ringtone for their phone to come up. So you're like, if this ringtone comes on, I'm not home. I'm not answering that phone. Every conversation feels like work with those things. Okay, before you guys actually decide to really dislike each other, maybe you get up and release the tension, and then you can let go, and I'll grab that elastic after the service. Thanks for our participants here. You can imagine if you're the one whose elastic is stretched, right? This is where most people make a fatal mistake. They assume that distance means incompatibility. They think that tension equals dysfunction, and what do? They avoid people who stretch them, right? That's it. This is what Paul teaches. The stretch is where the growth happens. The tension's where the strengths develop. The distance between you and someone else on the map creates the potential for something neither of you possess alone. And so if you think about a physical elastic, some of you junior high boys out there know elastics. That's good fun. The stretch creates energy, doesn't it? And you can fling it at people in your class. Not that I'm suggesting you play with elastics in class. But you can do that. You guys know it. You can build trebuchets with elastics or pumpkin flingers or something like that. When I was a youth pastor, water balloon launchers with medical tubing. I'm like, we know the force, the fun of a good elastic. A relaxed elastic, like no fun at all. No power. You need tension to create force, and the same principle actually applies to relationships. It also applies to teams. For sure, people close to you feel comfortable, but they don't challenge your thinking. They don't expose your blind spots. It feels great. It feels great when you're all pulling in the same direction. But the yellows will tell you that you're probably all pulling towards the rocks, and you're all missing the same things. Different people who are different from you create friction. They do. You've experienced friction. That friction generates insight. Does. The person who wants to plan everything feels like an anchor when you want to move fast. But they save you from careless mistakes, maybe catastrophic mistakes. The person who wants to jump in immediately feels reckless to you when you want to plan, slow things down, but they save you from analysis paralysis. They keep you from getting stuck. The person who focuses on relationship feels so inefficient. Am I right, yellows? You want to focus on task. You're like, how long is this board meeting going to go? right? But they build the trust that you need for long-term success. They do. They've got a piece of the magic. And you've got a different piece. The elastic between you isn't a bug. It's the system. It's the feature that makes the system work. And when you understand that grid, something happens. You stop taking differences personally. That's the first thing, right? Yeah, the person who drives you crazy isn't broken. They're not wrong. They're not deliberately being difficult. They're just far from you on the grid. That's just it. They just God has placed them in a different place in the body or a different place with different strengths and weaknesses on the grid. And before you know it, once you recognize this, you move from judgment to curiosity, don't you? Instead of judging that, you're like, oh, that's so interesting. They might be a yellow, or you might get some language for curiosity. Instead of asking, what's wrong with them? You start saying, what do they see that maybe I don't? Or what do they value that maybe I should value more than I do? You begin to recognize the pattern. The person who asks you endless questions isn't trying to derail your plans. They're just asking good questions, maybe to make the plan better. They process different information differently than you do, and so they need to talk through ideas to understand those ideas, to understand what's going on. A person who wants to decide quickly isn't careless. They just need to take action. It helps them both to understand ideas but also to feel a sense of value and worth from getting things done. Does that make sense? So what feels like recklessness to you might just be their path to learning, might be their path to joy. And the person who needs time alone is obviously antisocial. They're not antisocial. The person who needs time alone, you guys shouldn't, sorry for centering you out there. They recharge differently, and what feels to you like they're withdrawing from you might be how they are preparing and making sure that they can show up for you at their best. Does that make sense? So curiosity helps you to start to recognize your own wiring and your weaknesses, what energizes you, what causes you stress. That insight or that awareness can move you from tension that you were feeling before to like, no, this is good. This is good growth there. Good growth. From tension to growth, you start catching yourself before you push. Don't listen. We planned that trip for a long time. Okay, that was no spontaneous trip to Frankenmuth. That was the real deal, people. You start to catch yourself before you push someone into something that will be hard for them. You start thinking about other players on the team, not just yourself, because if you don't think it through, you might strain the relationship that's valuable to you. And you practice self-care, right? You start communicating your needs instead of expecting people to just read your mind, and you create space for others to do the same. One of the things you do is you start negotiating instead of demanding. You start collaborating instead of controlling. And most importantly, you actually begin to value that elastic. You value the elastic. It's where the magic happens, right? You actually start to seek out people who are different than you, right? When you've got a task or a challenge. As you guys know, we've moved house a few times. My ministry's taken me to a few different communities, and so what you don't know is that I am a man of a particular set of skills. That's right. Not to boast, but I'm pretty good at putting together IKEA cabinetry. After 3 moves, we've actually built 3 kitchens. 3 kitchens. That's wow, that'd be amazing. Darryl, what was wrong with the first one? No, we moved houses. We needed to do that. Do you want to know what I have never done? I have never installed an IKEA kitchen on my own. Oh, no. First, there was Bob. Bob was like a master carpenter in one of my churches. 120-year-old house. Nothing was square. If I didn't have Bob, we would have been toast. That was Bob. Then there was Dieter. And I got to tell you, if you can find one, Germans are great people to help you install kitchens. You're going to have to be patient, but because Dieter wants to double check every stud, both with the electronic stud finder, which you're thinking, Darryl, isn't that all you need? No, he's also got a handmade stud finder. So it's true. He wants to double check all those things, because what's the saying? Measure once, cut twice. You know what that means? Right. So after you've measured 7 times, your kitchen is going to come out perfectly. And I'm not dissing Dieter, okay? Dieter, if you watch this video, I miss you. I love you, man. Dieter was the best, and the kitchen turned out perfectly. Thank you to Dieter. By the way, if any of you are thinking of installing an IKEA kitchen here in Kitchener-Waterloo, just go ahead and call my man Winston Birch, because he would be happy to help you out like he helped me out, and we had a ton of fun. Come to my house and see my kitchen. It's like Winston's doing. It was so good. What's the point? Do you guys know that great leaders build teams with distance on the grid? Here's the thing. You don't need to be a great leader to desire to build distance on the team. You just need to be a people. People should build teams with a little bit of distance on the grid, because the most productive partnerships, I feel like I'm speaking to someone now. Like if I'm looking into your soul, the most productive partnerships, the strongest communities, the healthiest marriages, churches, whatever, have some tension on the elastic. Incompatibility can be grounds for a great marriage and a great team. And that's when you start to move from understanding to appreciation. Paul's vision for the church is not about tolerance. Remember, we're not talking about that. Tolerance implies putting up to something unpleasant. No, Paul's vision is about interdependence. You need the parts that are different from you. So do I. You need the parts that are different from you. Your growth depends on their contribution. And this changes how you build teams and how you form friendships and how you engage in community if you do it on purpose. You just stop looking for people who are like you, or only looking for people who are like you is probably better. Why? Because they recognize the gaps in your thinking, the weaknesses in your approach, the blind spots in your perspective. And so you start to think about building great community that includes diversity, and you do it intentionally. You put the planner next to the doer, right? That's good stuff. Planners and doers. You pair the visionary with the implementer. That's good stuff. You connect the relationship builder with the taskmaster, and you watch the sparks fly. No, like they need each other. They need the other people too. You create tension on purpose, because time under tension produces strength, right, Jim Bros? Time under tension produces the strengths. And yes, okay, some of you are thinking it's true. For all of this to work, you do have to create safety, right? You have to create safety for tension to be productive. High tension without trust can destroy relationships. High tension with trust and with increasing self-awareness can build something remarkable. And I want you to catch a vision for this, because this is what Paul means when he says, but in fact, God has placed the parts of the body, every one of them, just as he wanted them to be. I'm talking to you again. Just as he wanted them to be. I want you to hear me. I don't know who you are who needs to hear this. God created you on purpose, and we need your gifts. We need you in our community. You have things to bring to this community that we don't have without you, that we could never do without you. Does that make sense? I hope you hear God whispering, I don't make mistakes like that. I did it on purpose, and you've got a part in this community. Now, by default, right, maybe you prefer people like you, and that's because your brain craves predictability. You find comfort in the patterns that make sense, but difference, it can feel threatening until you train yourself to see it as valuable. It does take practice. So find that person's different from you, but you're like, I don't know, strangely, we get along, and it doesn't seem to make sense. So maybe start having these conversations with them to figure it out, to learn to see it as valuable. Okay, listen, if you've got some relationships under tension in your life right now, it's kind of why we're doing this whole series. We know relationships can be complicated. They can be complicated. So if you've got relationships like that, here's what I want you to do. Here's how we can maybe apply this a little bit. First, try to start by catching your judgment. I was going to use the word interrogate your judgments. Maybe that's a good word, but maybe it's a too threatening word. Just catch them. So when frustration starts to rise, I just want you to pause and ask yourself, where is this person on the grid? Like, is that the tension I'm feeling? Is that the frustration or the misunderstanding? Just because they're innocently different than me, they might be one of those boneheads in your life, and you might be right. But they might just be different than you. Ask them and just think, how far is that elastic stretched between us? What do they see that I'm missing? So that's catching or interrogating your judgments. Next, name the value. Go through the exercise, do the work. Name the value. What strength does this person bring that I lack? What good contribution, what's their perspective? See if you can articulate their perspective that they're bringing. How does their approach balance mine? And get specific. Don't settle for vague, well, they're a sister in Jesus, so I guess they're okay. Or not vague appreciation, that doesn't work. Identify concrete ways their difference makes things better. And then take a risk and communicate that with them. Not in a patronizing way, but with genuine recognition. Say, you know what, Kendra, I know that I push for speed sometimes, and it kind of feels like you've been pumping the brakes a little bit lately. And Kendra would smile and look at you and say, you noticed that, did you? Yes, I did. And then say, but I just want to say how much I appreciate. I'm so grateful. And I can see the headaches that you've saved us from as an organization who has to report to CRA, Kendra. Okay, so I get it. You're doing your job, I guess. You guys get how that works? Thanks, Kendra, for letting me send you out. And no, that's not a conversation Kendra and I need to have, but that I know of. I mean, Kendra, I hope you'll tell me. Thank the person for their contribution. Name it, articulate it, talk about it from appreciation of strengths, and say, I get that there's tension, and we're going to figure out the tension, but for now, I just want to say I'm working to see things better. Finally, you might have to adjust your expectations. Oh, Darryl, really? Yeah. Because if you expect people to operate like you do, when they don't, you're going to feel frustrated. You're going to be constantly disappointed in other people who don't just do what you want them to do. Or when you wake up in the morning and say, let's go on an adventure, and she says, I needed to know yesterday if we were going to have an adventure today. So you're going to have to take the kids by yourselves to the adventure or whatever it is. And that's the point. When I say adjust your expectations, it's up to you to decide how important is this relationship. Yeah, really? Yes. How important is this relationship to you? And then shift your expectation. Why? Because it's always a choice. You can just decide you're going to go it alone. But if you want to experience God's vision for human flourishing, including your own, you're going to have to figure out how to do it with people. And some of your relationships, not ones that you should throw away carelessly. Most of your relationships, friends, aren't ones that you should throw away or consider throwing away carelessly. Because you can't erase the differences, but you can learn to better orchestrate them. It's the symphony illustration that I was hoping to share to gain points with my wife, who is not feeling well today, so she didn't come. It's the symphony. You guys know symphony, right? The beauty emerges from the harmony of diverse sounds, right? Some of you are like, symphony, Darryl? It's like School of Rock with Jack Black, guys. It's a long way to the top if you're going to rock and roll, but all right, that was for both of you. People are strange. That's the point. People are strange, and you will spend your life around people who don't make sense to you. That's the truth. You always have two choices. You can just try and eliminate the tension by surrounding yourselves with a bunch of other weirdos just like you. You can create an echo chamber. Those are great because everybody agrees and everybody processes the same way. Everybody reinforces your blind spots. And if we're all blind, then we're all okay. You stay comfortable. You stay weak. Or you can embrace the tension and seek out the strange, right? Learn to appreciate the parts of the body that are different. Build teams if you're in a position where you get to build a team. Build relationships, contribute to the community where, the elastic's going to stretch sometimes. The tension, though, is going to create energy, and the differences are actually going to make us stronger. We're going to be able to highlight the strengths that come from that. Paul says all parts are indispensable. Yeah, the person you're tempted to dismiss, remember, might be the one you need the most. That's how God designed the body. That's how God designed community to work. It's not through uniformity, right? It's through unity in diversity. It's not by making everyone the same, but by purposefully arranging different parts so that they can shine in the place they were designed to shine. So what's my final encouragement to you? Each one of you, friends, each one of you, I hope, should use whatever gifts you have received to serve others as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. Thank you for bringing different forms of God's grace to our community here at Pathway. And then in humility, each one of us should value others above ourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. That's Philippians chapter 2. And then finally, friends, speaking the truth in love, we will grow up to become in every respect, listen to this, the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ. Did you hear that? Like if we can figure out how to do this well, we all become more like Jesus. Like it's amazing that it's through this stuff that we actually get to be more like Jesus. From him, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work.